Hey YouTube, so I am feeling much better today after yesterday. I was in Des Moines and I feel like total utter crap all day long. I like kids, but it seems like on Sunday and on Friday, the parents take their kids to the grocery store to shop, and it makes it so hard to concentrate. I mean, I love kids, but maybe leave them with someone while you go shopping? Ugh. It just gave me a splitting headache all day long, and I just felt lousy. I felt kind of sick, actually. There was just way too much noise. I what I really wish though is that shopping stores had better acoustics. To suck up all that sound, because kids have no filters. They have only one volume, it seems like, which is screaming. It's as if they try and it's as though they feel that they have to try and out-talk everyone around them, even if they're screaming from down the store. With that little rant out of the way, I thought I would share with you a little bit of how I oracleize, and know that is not a euphemism for dirty subject. um, But yes, I do consider myself to be an oracle of the Morrighan. She was a prophetess, and she can certainly be called upon in terms of divination. One method I really like to use is an informal chant. I've written more than a few rhyming couplets, just depending on my mood and how I'm feeling, and I'd like to share one with you. It's just something from my tarot spread journal. Hold on. Here it is. And I usually say this while I'm shuffling my cards, as I imagine her hand sort of guiding me while I shuffle, and then my intuition draws me to whichever card I'm being drawn to pull for that day. Sometimes I draw 3 cards. Today I just decided to draw 1. Anyway, the chant is, "O Great Mother, reveal the road that I might see, the path that lay ahead of me." It was really simple, which is fine, and it works. It helps put me in a very spiritual mood. But the thing is, today I happen to draw... Found it. I swear, every time this card pops up, I end up realizing that I've lost something, and I usually find it that day. But the irony is, the card that signifies lost items, I end up losing. But I found it, and come to find out, I have lost my house keys, my keys to the post office, and I have no idea where they are. I could have sworn I had them with me yesterday. So I am going to have to turn off the entire house looking for them. Not a fun chore, I can assure you, because I am not the most tidy person. Things are a bit disheveled, but that is only the sign of a creative mind. But I didn't really intend for this month to do a special on the Morrighan, but that looks as though that is what it's turning into, somewhat at least, which is fine by me. I enjoy it. I feel it's sort of a way of giving acknowledgments to and blessings to the goddess whom I serve. Look what I found. And if I hadn't been told where to look, I wouldn't have found them. They were hidden in the pockets of a pair of jeans that I haven't worn for, well, since last autumn. And I didn't fold this pair of jeans. but whoever did must have found my keys and just put them inside, because that's where they were. This is the upteenth time I have drawn Six of Coins, or Pentacles, rather, and it is signified that I'm going to find something that I've lost that's hiding in plain sight. So, one of these days I'm going to create a spell, or maybe more than one spell, using this tarot card to find what's lost. You know, I totally think that is totally just justified, considering how often I pull it, only to realize that I've lost something that I later on find that day. So I'm really curious to see if others watching this this YouTube broadcast have also pulled the Six of Pentacles or coins and end up finding something that you had lost that was just hiding in plain sight. So it was while traveling to Des Moines this weekend that I brought along a book with me to read. This book, Night's Black Agents, Witches, Wizards, and the Dead in the Ancient World by Daniel Ogden. And it was while reading it that I was reminded that the Morrighan does, in fact, yield a number of characteristics with goddesses that are regarded as mistresses of the animals. Before I sort of get into that in a little more depth, I wanted to read to you a passage from an article that Anne Ross contributed to The Witch Figure, which is edited by one of my favorite folklorists, Benicia Noel. Her article is called The Divine Hag of the Pagan Celts, and in it she refers to the Morrighan when she writes, "The goddess, for her part, is at once creator and destroyer, gentle and fierce, mother and nurturer. She must slay by means of her magical powers or by her invincible weapons. She often claims the severed heads of those killed in battle as her just portion. The Irish tales are full of references to such beings, from the fearsome war goddesses with their bird form and their powers of sexuality and fecundity, to the stately goddesses symbolic of the divine sovereignty of Ireland." Now, it's worth noting that most scholars nowadays conflate the two, because they insist that they are in actuality one and the same. But Ross goes on to say, "Whose matchless beauty could change in an instant into an ugliness which no man but one with the courage and character to equip him for kingship itself could face." Wow, that was a sentence there. Let's see, and whose repulsive sexual advances he could bring himself to accept without an obvious flinching. Now, as I was reading this, I was absolutely reminded of the Morrighan as a goddess of sovereignty, which I have expressed before in my views. Let's see. Ogden actually goes on to say that that animals fawning over a deity is often an expression of her mastery over them. He goes on to describe the Sumerian goddess Ishtar, whom he says promises that the mountains will bear fruit, that the ewes and nanny goats will be fecund, and that the other animals of her lovers will be vigorous. But Gilgamesh rejects her advances, much like Cuchulainn rejects the sexual advances of sovereignty of the Morrighan, reminding her of the doom that her former lovers have met In fact, um, when the land suffered, the chieftain who was ritually wedded to the land also met his doom in Celtic Ireland and elsewhere throughout continental Europe. She turned a chief shepherd into a wolf, and his own herdsmen hunted him down. She invited the gardener Isilanu to touch her vulva before striking him and turning him into a frog. Ogden then returns to the Americans and finds similar references in regards to the Mistress of Animals and a hymn to Aphrodite. Let's see. Wild animals fawn upon Aphrodite. They fawn upon her. Gray wolves and fierce-eyed lions, bears and swift leopards, hungry for deer. She delighted in her heart to see them and cast desire into their breasts, and they all lay together, 2 by 2, in the shady hut. We are also told that Aphrodite takes a human lover, and I'm going to screw this up, but Anchises, the father of Aeneas, only to render him feeble, though subsequent translations say that he was paraplegic. Ogden actually also draws parallels to the Greek witch goddess Circe, who had, of course, animals fawning over her. She transforms men into animals, and as well as being sexual towards men, she in some way cripples or blights her lovers. Ogden then concludes that as a witch goddess, Circe's identification as witch goddess is much more ancient than her identification as a mistress of animals, which hails at least as far back as the Neolithic. In fact, some of the motif index of folk literature that is associated with witches also corresponds to the Morrighan, such as witches in the form of animals, witches fly through the air, witches injure, enchant, or transform victims, in particular into animals. In fact, the Morrighan was also renowned for transforming humans into animals, or sometimes a pool of water. Witches entice men with an offer of love and then desert or destroy them. This is known as La Belle Dame Sans Merci. And witches raise winds. Even though I personally believe that the Morrighan is associated with this motif of the Mistress of Animals, she is, of course, undoubtedly associated with the Neolithic and even the Paleolithic cult of the bird goddess, who, in all probability, probably give birth to the world egg in Paleolithic a tribal mythology that has come down to us through pre and even Indo-European myths. As such, I often view the Morrighan as sort of a caretaker of animals in a sense. I often hold a special ritual for her, either on Imbolc itself, the 1st of February, or on the old style date of the festival, which would have been around 12th of February, around the time when the sun is 15 degrees of Aquarius. Either or, depending on what I'm doing actually on Imbolc itself on the 1st of February. If I'm don't really have anything else planned on the day, I will often work magic or spells or something to heal animals, if I'm able, or just sort of a generic blessing in the form of of a blessing rite for animals on as I've said, Invoke or the old style date of the Sabbath. So I really hope you've sort of enjoyed a sort of a bigger take on my views of the goddess. And if you have any questions, I'm totally open to answering them. Just try and be polite about it. It seems that a lot of people these days don't understand how to behave graciously towards each other, and I would like to see this sort of changing a bit. Use your words wisely. Don't just sort of come at people and with an almost insinuation that they must be wrong just because you personally have never heard such a thing. In fact, I'm probably not the first person to make the argument that the Morrighan was a Mistress of Animals. I believe I may have heard it elsewhere. Again, I have read so many books and special academic journal articles that I really haven't any idea what that book or journal article would have been anymore. I certainly still have it. I would just need to look to see what it is now in order to cite anything of relevance. So, until I post again, my witches, keep calm and witch on. And some fairy lights here. A bunch of these would actually look really good on a midsummer altar with votive candles inside. It's $7 a little pricey, but it's very though. It's now always much more expensive.